are streaming right now on Twitch TV and YouTube simultaneously. So thank you for joining me. Probably can't see me that great right now on YouTube, but we are live. We are here. Just a couple things to talk about before we get into the episode, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight is episodes 13 and 14 of season 4 of The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob. Okay, so we're doing this today, 13 and 14, and then tomorrow we will do 3 episodes for the finale, which will be 15, 16, and 17. That is the end of season 4. Okay, and we're going to do that because Labor Day, Monday, I have some things to take care of. So it's better that we're getting these out of the way now, rather sooner than later. Okay? So, the first announcement, if you guys can see me here on YouTube, we will also switch over to the live feed on Twitch. Ladies and gentlemen, ghosts and goblins, witches and wizards, vampires and werewolves, before we get the stream started, I do just want to take a brief moment of silence. If anybody is not aware, you guys know I am a hockey fan. We have recently lost Johnny Gaudreau, who passed away at the age of 31. He was killed by a drunk driver. And I would just like to take a brief moment of silence here to pay my respects to his family, his friends, his loved ones. So, ladies and gentlemen, rest in peace to Johnny Gaudreau. Thank you, everybody. As I said, Johnny Gaudreau was killed, him and his brother, killed by a drunk driver. Okay, this is not the first tragedy that I've ever seen caused by such an incident. You guys should know that Kobe Bryant is also one of my favorite basketball players. Kobe Bryant and LeBron James, both my favorite NBA players. Kobe Bryant obviously lost his life. Him and his daughter were taken because of a helicopter crash. And also, you would know that I am a fan of Jackass, and my favorite people, my favorite actors on the show, characters, whatever you want to call them, were Bam Margera and Ryan Dunn. Ryan Dunn, of course, also lost his life in a similar fashion, behind the wheel, speeding, and lost control. Johnny Gaudreau was 31 years old. He was born in New Jersey, played for most of his career in Calgary with the Flames, and most recently was a member of the Columbus Blue Jackets. So cheers to Johnny Gaudreau. Cheers to his brother. Rest in peace. Sipping on some Arizona, ladies and gentlemen. Arnold Palmer. Half and half, iced tea and lemonade. So thank you for giving me the time to pay my respects to the family, the friends, and the loved ones of Johnny Gaudreau. Of course, like I said, ladies and gentlemen, just an absolute tragedy. Only 31 years old, still had his entire life, and I try to always tell people to be aware when you are driving, right? I never really appreciated how people out here in Buffalo drive like complete assholes. You take into consideration, it was probably like a Thursday night. There's a lot of drunk drivers around. And because somebody decided to make a stupid decision, people lost their lives because of that. So if you are going to, drink, please do it responsibly. If you do consume alcohol when you go out, please do it responsibly. Don't be the person that feels like they can handle their alcohol and make the decision to get behind a wheel and it could cost you your life, it could cost you your health, and even the people around you, right? Not even if it's just you, you could hurt other people and endanger them as well. So always take into consideration when you get behind that wheel, ladies and gentlemen, you are not fucking NASCAR drivers, okay? If any of you are a NASCAR driver, that's great, because NASCAR drivers risk their life too. Every single time they step onto the track on a race at 100 miles an hour, they take the risk of losing their life as well. So, most of you out there, though, watching are probably not fucking NASCAR drivers. And I always try to make it an important statement because, like I said, I've seen a lot of people lose their life to something so stupid. And just something that can easily be avoided. Okay? I've dealt with it myself here personally. And we've seen it happen again with Johnny Gaudreau. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for letting me talk. With that being said, we will now start the watch-along. As I said, episodes 13 and 14 tonight. Joe Bob going to be talking about the movies A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night and The Stuff. After we cover 13 and 14 tonight, tomorrow we will do the finale with episodes 15, 16, and 17, and that will be the end of Season 4 of The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob. Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. After we do Season 4, when we complete it, in September, I believe we're going to start Season 5. And there's about 19 episodes, so a couple more episodes than in Season 4. But I do believe in September we will be starting Season 5. After that, once October comes around, we will do all of the Halloween specials, Thanksgiving for November, and the Christmas specials for December. So that is going to be the remainder of the Last Drive-In watch-alongs for us here throughout the 2024 year. Ladies and gentlemen, ghosts and goblins, witches and wizards, vampires and werewolves, this is episode 13 and 14 of The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob. Once again, we are doing a watch-along with Joe Bob for the movies A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night and The Stuff. So without further ado, I'm going to let Joe Bob take it away.
You know how some nights you just feel like pizza? You can't think of eating anything else but pizza? Well, tonight I feel like some Iranian black and white vampire ghost town oil field horror with extra pimps, whores, and heroin addicts. And I want all the actors to speak Persian and act like performance art zombies who hang around Alamo Drafthouse on Russian existentialism night. You know the genre I'm talking about. It's the genre where two actors circle around each other like they're playing slow-motion musical chairs and then one of them raises an eyebrow. Yes, it's an art film. Yes, it's pretentious. Yes, it's got a techno spaghetti western soundtrack that's sort of like what you would expect if Clint Eastwood was gay and decided that violence was not the answer after all. And yes, it's got gratuitous skateboarding while feeding on human flesh. Anybody? Nobody knows what this movie is. I'm Joe Bob Briggs, by the way, and this is The Last Drive-In. If you want to talk to us, be sure to send those tweets and emails to Darcy the Mail Girl. And you guys don't know what this movie is, do you? I first saw this film back in 2014 or 2015 at the Chattanooga Film Festival, and it was introduced by Elijah Wood. And, of course, who else would introduce it but Frodo Baggins of The Hobbit? And Elijah is not in the movie. You can't be in the movie unless you're Iranian. I think he must have put up some money for it or something. But I'm talking about A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, which sounds kind of pervy, right? Sounds like it's going to be about some Ted Bundy predator. But that's the trick those wily Iranians are playing on us. When they asked the director, Anna Lily Amirpour, to explain what she was going for in this film, she was just all over the lot. She had an interview with Roger Corman that just broke down into half sentences and mutterings and long pauses. And then Roger would say that what he thought the movie was about, and he's a great admirer of the movie, but then she would sort of say, no, that's not quite what it's about, but then she wouldn't give any sort of coherent description of what she'd be a skater girl. But some of you will remember that Bruce Lee had these things he would say about controlling your life and balancing your life and being honest with yourself and how hard that is. And she was speaking ecstatically about how important all that stuff was. But she was ignoring two things. Bruce Lee's brain exploded, okay? And two, his chosen fighting weapon was nunchakus. And by the way, there was just a federal judge ruling that nunchakus are a legal weapon in America. I never knew they were illegal, but apparently they have been illegal in New York State for the past 44 years, and so the lovers had to go to court, lay the Second Amendment on those people until this judge struck down a law from 1974. So I admit that nunchakus, or nunchucks, as we call them in Texas, are the coolest weapon ever invented, because you can do that double arm over the back thing, sling those babies around like you're pretending to beat yourself in the chest with a stick. Right before you crack somebody's skull open with a quadruple backhand to all four sides of his cranium. Unfortunately, there's only one person in the world who was able to do that, and he's dead. And that's pretty much the whole point, because nunchakus were used in the greatest martial arts movie of all time, Enter the Dragon, by the greatest martial artist of all time, Bruce Lee. So who would think it's a good idea to ban them in the first place? Apparently anti-Chinese doofuses in the New York State legislature. In fact, I don't understand this whole anti-self-defense thing in New York City. It's a city where you kind of need to be thinking about self-defense. They used to have the greatest knife show in the world at the Javits Convention Center in New York City.
I do just
want
to add really quickly, okay? When I was security guard for the Buffalo Sabres, when I worked at the arena, I had to take a class that taught us about the laws here in New York State, okay? In New York State, and legally get into a fight. If I want to fight you and you want to fight me, that is legal. The police really cannot do anything about that because both parties have agreed to have a fight. It is only illegal when one party does not want to fight. Okay, so if you are under attack and you show absolutely no sign of, keeping the attack going, like if you weren't the antagonizer or if you're just trying to do something out of self-defense, that's when it is illegal, okay? It is only illegal when when one person is attacking you and you do not want to attack back. That is when it is illegal. It is perfectly legal in New York State for two people to have a fight. We do it all the fucking time here in Buffalo. People get drunk, they get into a fight. The cops aren't going to really arrest anybody because there's bigger things to tend to, okay? There's other problems out there that they need to worry about other than two drunks getting into a fucking fist fight at a bar, and then one of them are probably going to end up in jail for the night because maybe the other guy didn't want to fight him. You know what I mean? But in New York State, it is perfectly legal for two people to have a fight. And that is what most people don't understand, okay? If two people wanted to fight each other, it would be perfectly legal in the cops' eyes. The cops probably wouldn't even care. They might stand there and sell tickets, okay?
In a digression, inside a digression that started with a digression. Fortunately, I can multitask. I know exactly where I am. So New York had the greatest knife show ever. But former Mayor Michael Bloomberg harassed the hell out of the organizers until they were finally forced to move it to Jersey City. And to this day, they have that insane 4-inch law. It says if you carry a knife 4 inches or longer in a public place, you can go to jail. Excuse me, this would not only rule out every ceremonial pocket knife awarded by the Kiwanis Club for meritorious service for the past 100 years, and every knife used by the Boy Scouts for everything from pine whittling to preparing fish for a campfire, but every steak knife at Smith & Walensky, the best steakhouse in New York City, is longer than 4 inches. If they raided Peter Luger's steakhouse in Brooklyn, they could arrest at least 100 people on any given night, including the entire kitchen staff. But I digress. Nunchakus, that's what I was talking about. Nunchakus, the Shaolin fighting sticks mastered by Bruce Lee. One of the most beautiful weapons ever invented. and also one of the stupidest, because I don't know exactly how you would use it in an actual fight in which the other team also had weapons.
I don't know how many of you are actually able to see this. Probably not a lot of you on Twitch, but we'll try here on YouTube. I do personally have a knife collection. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I do have a knife collection. I also have a sword collection because I'm really big into martial arts. I got pirate swords. I got swords from World War II. But you can look here. Hopefully you can see that pretty decently. But we do have a fair amount of a knife collection going on. And that's just really the half of it. Like I said, we got Gengar down there as well. I don't know if you can see Gengar chilling. But Gengar is chilling. He's there. So, again, not sure how well YouTube is picking this up. We do got some swords over there. You can see some of my swords. I got some swords over here by the PS5 area where I game and stuff. So to me, perfectly legal to collect them. But if you decided to use them, you would be going to jail for quite some time. So for collection purposes, it's a-okay. But don't try to use that shit in a public place, because the federales might not take too likely to that.
For example, if they had swords, when they were arguing before the court, I hope nobody said, nunchucks don't kill, people do. Because in this case, you'd have to say, nunchucks don't kill, nor do people in possession of nunchucks. I know there might be some wacky Jackie Chan scenario in which the nunchaku master faked out the swordsman and did a triple backward somersault and landed on the bad guy's bald head and used the nunchucks to double thump the back of his knees until he crumpled to the ground in pain, and you killed him with a well-aimed blow to a pressure point in the neck or something. And as beautiful as that might be, and as many camera specialists as it would take to carry it off, it's probably not practical in real life. In real life, you would probably just aim any object at that chain connecting the dragon stick to the yang stick, making it impossible for either stick to hurt you. And by the way, what's with making nunchucks so short to begin with? I don't get that. But an even more likely scenario is you would just snap that chain so the Bruce Lee wannabe soils his G. Holding two disconnected wooden twigs while you come at him slinging an ancient weapon, meteor hammer, which is basically 10 tons of concentrated metal balls. Chain. So in the 4 decades since Enter the Dragon, I have witnessed nunchucks all over the place, but mostly as accessories for cosplay outfits at comics conventions. Back when I worked for the Movie Channel, we did a couple of sketches around nunchakus in the old Dumont studios in Spanish Harlem. So I guess I've been one of the law-breaking rebels. In fact, if I recall correctly, we had a set of nunchucks displayed on the wall of my set. But in that case, I'm not sure whether I would be the one in possession of them or the jail term would have to be assigned to the set designer. But either way, that's how hardcore we are, dude. Don't touch my sticks, motherfucker. In fact, when I think about it, this may be the only time in history we needed to invoke the Second Amendment to make the world safe for art directors, restaurant designers, and garment district. I know those wooden sticks are awkward, honey, but try to hold them away from the hip because the dress is cut on the bias. Of course, the lawmakers of New York will need to fight back in order to keep the populace safe from many other cinematic weapons. Chainsaws. Those need to be outlawed immediately thanks to the 1974 classic, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which inspired Black & Decker killings in dozens of movies since then. Turkey forks will have to be banned due to that maniac in Blood Rage. Bowler hats, they're out due to the frisbee flinging proficiency of Odd Job in Goldfinger. Cricket bats, they're so deadly they can kill zombies. Or I guess it would be re-kill zombies, because we know that from Shaun of the Dead. Fire pokers have been used in so many movies, including the classic Black Christmas, of course, that we'll soon need some other implement for stoking embers. Axes of the sort used by Paul Bunyan would be disqualified even if you were only counting versions of the Lizzie Borden story. Same goes for surgical implements. Thanks to the dozens of Jack the Ripper retellings, Ian McKellen proved that the gnarled walking stick, when used by ancient bearded men like Gandalf, are deadlier than any AR-15, and need I even mention the bark-tanned kangaroo leather bullwhip wielded by Indiana Jones. Machetes, scythes, weed whackers, everything used by highway maintenance crews are soon to face the wrath of New York legislators thanks to Jason in assorted Friday the 13th movies. Garbage disposals have ground up so many hands and other body parts, like in Mirror, Mirror and Phantasm, that obviously the building codes need to be revised.
Now, this is a little bit funny to me. They literally shot an entire Friday the 13th movie, Jason Takes Manhattan. It's one of my favorite Friday the 13th movies. I would say my favorites are probably Jason Takes Manhattan, Jason X, yes, the one where Jason is in space. I do like Jason X. Friday the 13th Part 4, Friday the 13th Part 5, and I think 7 is the one where he's in Manhattan. It's either 7 or 8. My memory's a little foggy right now. But obviously, Freddy vs. Jason is on that list as well. Freddy vs. Jason is like my favorite horror movie of all time. But it's a little bit funny to me how they shot an entire Friday the 13th movie in New York, Manhattan to be exact. And you couldn't even have a knife legally over 4 inches with a blade longer than 4 inches. But Jason is just walking around the streets of Manhattan fucking dealing people left and right, you know?
Soon be going back to tossing the spoiled meat out into the alley. And of course, we'll need to comb through the permanent film collection at the Museum of Modern Art to make sure we haven't left out any other deadly household objects that could cause mass havoc at the next New York Comic-Con.
Actually, now that I think about it, there's not a lot of machete scenes in Jason Takes Manhattan. Am I right? Like, there might be a few, but considering that he's actually walking around Manhattan in the streets of New York, I don't really remember seeing him carrying around a machete. You know what I mean? So
I just hope nobody in Albany watches Ice Cream Man, you know? Clint Howard mixes human body parts into various gelato flavors. I would really miss that Mr. Softy truck. Okay, speaking of complicated food, a girl walks home alone at night. This is the old story of a petty thief living in the loneliest town in Iran who kicks his heroin-addicted father out of the house after stealing some drugs. In love with a vampirist while strung out on ecstasy in a Dracula costume, unaware that his beautiful bloodsucker girlfriend is on a one-woman mission to eliminate the gangsters, pimps, and drug addicts in the oil town that's so poor they don't have graveyards, they just roll people into a ditch. Sure, we've seen it before. But have we seen it with Europop Sergio Leone knockoff music and Farsi subtitles? I think not. We have 3 dead bodies, 20 pre-existing dead bodies, 2 breasts, 1 explosion, multiple oil drilling equipment in close-up, 1 toe injection, low-tech motor vehicle theft, brick wall punching, hooker abuse, gangster chewing, body dragging, 2 drug-induced freakouts, multiple trance dancing with deadpan punk lyrics, child discipline vampire style, disco ball spinning, that whole will she devour me or will she love me relationship thing, minor gender bending, homeless chomping, sports car keying, spontaneous erotic ear piercing, heroin cooking, involuntary wrist injections, gratuitous transgender performance art, gratuitous street urchin, gratuitous widow fleecing infomercial, gratuitous vampire skateboarding, gratuitous freight train, finger rolls. Drive-In Academy Award nominations for Marshall Manesh as the junkie who thinks his ex-wife has inhabited the body of the house cat. Dominic Raines as the tattoo-faced, cocaine-loving pimp and drug dealer. Arash Marandi as the small-time jewelry thief who gets lucky with a vampire. Sheila Vand as the chador-wearing vampire who listens to a lot of Lionel Richie. Mojan Marno as the hooker with a heart of lead. And Anna Lily Amirpour, the writer-director for creating the first Iranian horror flick. 3 stars. Joe Bob says, check it out.
3 stars.
And I do love me some black and white. Hardly anybody knows how to do black and white cinematography anymore. It's a lost art. But this movie is beautiful in that respect. It's one reason I like film noir, or I never know how to pronounce that. Is it noir or noir? Noir? Why do we use French words in the first place? Nobody in this country can say French words. But
I also myself love noir movies. I pronounce it noir here in America. I mean, I'm from fucking New York. But there's probably multiple millions of ways to pronounce it. But film noir, horror noir, one of my favorite series, of course. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a comic book, but more so of like a graphic novel series, Sin City. That's noir. And I would just like to see more things actually done with noir and that kind of genre as well nowadays. It's kind of become like a lost art. You know, it's been maybe over like 12 years, maybe like 15 years since really the last good noir movie. But not saying that black and white can't be done. I do know that recently Godzilla minus one, which is basically the retelling of the original Godzilla film. It's done with all Japanese actors, all Japanese crew and stuff, and I actually appreciated that movie quite a bit. I'm not really a big Godzilla fan, but I did like that movie where it was just all Japanese. More recently, they did like a black and white version too. So I do know that there is also a black and white Godzilla minus one out there. Um, but again, it's just the genre in general has become more of a lost art, and I would like to definitely see it done more, especially in horror. Horror noir is great.
everywhere. They put French words on banks. Oh, excuse me, banks. B-A-N-C. The bank. I'm going to the bank. Of course, it's not as pretentious as filming a movie in Farsi with actors who can speak English and then subtitling the movie so that it can look like it actually came from Iran. The woman that directed this is American, but she was born in England and she has an Iranian family, but she never actually lived in Iran. And she doesn't really speak Farsi herself, but hey, it sounded cool. It'd be like if I made a movie, because my roots go back to Scotland, I would make it in the Pictish language that hadn't been spoken since the 11th century. But it would make people think I rounded up all the last Pictish-speaking rednecks in Argyll or somewhere. And I made one of them into a vampire, and I took it to the Sundance Film Festival. I would win. Because even though it's stupid in a smart way.
Irish Italians here in Buffalo, New York. I'm one of them. I'm Irish and Italian. My mom is actually also French. She's basically Irish and French, and my dad was Italian, Mexican. Um, Decided to name me after my dad. I'm not a junior. I'm not a second, anything like that. My name is Dwayne Mario, and his name was Dwayne Thomas. So we're not really, I'm not like a follow up exactly, but I was named after him. So, you know, I'm mostly Italian and Irish, but there is also some French. My mom's last name is LaChance. And LaChance, if any of you know the famous Stephen King movie, where that's from, also a book, LaChance. That is actually her government legal last name. And like I said, my dad was Italian and Mexican, and my mom is Irish and French.
So when I first saw this movie at the Chattanooga Film Festival, I thought these scenes were actually shot in Iran. But most of the people in the movie have never been to Iran except for film festivals and stuff like that. Although I don't think this particular movie has ever been officially shown in Iran. They're not big fans of horror in countries where daily life is full of horror. Anyhow, it's not Iran anyway. It's Taft, California, which you've probably never heard of, but as you might suspect from the opening images, it's an oil town. It's one of the oldest continuously operating oil towns. They pump billions of barrels out of those basins there. Maricopa, Midway, Sunset, Buena Vista. Any oil guy can tell you the names of the basins in Taft. And of course, there's always the contrast between the big oil companies Chevron being the main one in Taft, and the poverty of the people who live there. And part of that poverty is caused by the fact that California refuses to drill their oil. They refuse to drill new fields. They have old fields. They have old refineries. They'd rather just use Texas oil. But, all right, let's not go there right now. We don't have towns like Taft anymore in Texas because we keep drilling in new places. The money moves around like God intended. All right, several things. Numero uno, one of the coolest vampires ever. And the idea for that vampire came from writer-director Anna Lily Amarpour when she was working on a short film, and one of the extras had a chador, which is that body cloth that the Muslim women wear. And she thought, I want to try that on, see what it feels like. So she put it on, and she felt this sense of power. She said she felt like a stingray, a destroyer, and she wanted to go get her skateboard and catch the wind in that thing. In other words, she thought it was a badass garment that a vampire would wear. And that was the genesis of this movie. So, and then she decided it had to be in why. And since the chador is only worn in countries overseas, or mostly worn over there, she wanted to set it in her ancestral homeland of Iran. She grew up in Bakersfield, by the way, which is about 30 miles east of Taft. So really, it's not about Taft and it's not about Iran. Although when you think of Iran, you do think of oil. But it's like this dream city that she invented so her chador-wearing vampiress could float through it, devouring tattoo-faced, dumbbell-pumping pimp gangsters. And by the way, that tattoo on the pimp's face is Persian writing that translates as pussy stretcher. And Anna Lily Amarpour had her mom do that tattoo calligraphy so that they would get the translation of pussy stretcher. Exactly right. The point I'm trying to make here, and I'm not doing it very well, is you have to suspend your normal expectations of what a movie is when you watch this, because it's a dream vision. It's a series of paintings. It's an amazing places and empty people looking for something to do, and that's what makes it attractive to a vampire. All right, we'll talk more about the filmmakers and the actors at the next break, but right now let's not break the mood of A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. Roll it. I know they're not going to let me say pussy stretcher. There's some guy in New York right now with his hand on a squelch button. He's got an 8-second delay on that thing, and every time I say pussy stretcher, it comes out as... Which is why I should probably stop saying pussy stretcher. Because if I keep talking about pussy stretcher, I'll end up talking about pussy stretching. And nobody wants to hear that from me. Okay. Although, you know what? There's a cat in the movie that's a fairly important character. So the pimp motto written on his face could mean he abuses cats, right? He stretches cats. Although I'm thinking this guy would probably just put the cat in a microwave, you know. That would be pussy exploder, not stretcher.
The cat has an important role in the movie, ladies and gentlemen. Ghosts and goblins, witches and wizards, vampires and werewolves. Next segment break
So
at
like
37
a true
minutes.
hipster vampirist, our stylized Muslim blood-sucking neighborhood watch lady skateboards down the street having stolen the wheels of a terrorized child. And of course, getting in a kid's face and threatening him with a violent, bloody death unless he promises to be good always works, right, with a kid. I'm getting the impression that our vampirist thinks of herself as the morality police. There's no way you could know this, though, unless you read the graphic novel that goes with the movie, yes?
Okay, hold on, chat. Where the hell did they film this movie? Because now that I think about it, was it filmed in New York or was it filmed in Iran? I might have missed that. Addition, but ladies and gentlemen, ghosts and goblins, witches and wizards, vampires and werewolves. How many times have you seen Iran videos of a vampire cruising around on a skateboard looking for people to hunt down? I don't think not too many.
That's what I said. There is a graphic novel that goes with the movie, and that graphic novel tells us that the vampiress is 187 years old, and so she has that sort of been there, done that attitude of this person is worth saving, that one is not.
They wrote a fucking graphic novel? They wrote a graphic novel for this movie? A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night? And the director still couldn't fucking describe what the whole meaning behind the film is? But there's a whole book and a movie?
And she plans her meals accordingly. In that Roger Corman interview that I mentioned, Roger asked the director, Anna Lily Amarpour, if she identified with the vampire in any way, and her answer came back like a tennis ball. Yes, she said, she does, because she wants to live forever. And she said this in a very serious way. She wants to live forever, even if she's lonely. And then she quoted some Anne Rice books and said that's what influenced her view of vampires. And then she talked about Michael Jackson's Thriller video and says she watched that over and over and over again. It's actually John Landis, I think, who directed that. But she said that's how she learned how to be a director.
Hold on, chat. Ladies and gentlemen, ghosts and goblins, witches and wizards, vampires and werewolves. This fucking movie is clearly all over the place. They want an Iranian vampire skateboarding killer who apparently stalks other females at night, walking alone. But a lot of the inspiration came from the Thriller music video from Michael Jackson. And apparently that is exactly what taught the director for this movie how to be a director, was watching the music video for Michael Jackson's Thriller.
I'm watching Thriller over and over again. Now, she also went to UCLA Film School, so I have to assume she picked up a few things there about lenses and aspect ratios, but she's basically a painter. It's a very painterly film. The action is like silent films. It's like Cabinet of Dr. Caligari or something. All kind of motivated by the music. The music is overwhelming. And we're supposed to figure out what the characters by their faces. Like when she comes up out of that bathtub. Because of where that scene is positioned in the storytelling, I think she just might be wrestling with feelings of love, right? We got to go there, right? Okay, back to the movie. That they're a genre of their own. I think that's what's going on here. It's like a David Lynch.
We got a fucking Iranian vampire western, and it's apparently all inspired by the Michael Jackson Thriller music video. It not only is a movie, it's also a book. And if you're keeping up with me, chat, witches and wizards, vampires and werewolves, if you're keeping up with me, the cat also has an important role in the movie. All right, the cat just may be the biggest star of the movie.
I don't get the Western part, unless oil fields make it Western. I would call it a porn movie featuring people unable to have sex. That's how I would describe it. This is what it would look like if you got a porn director to make a flick where the only rule is they can't actually have sex. And that really is a new genre, you know. Give all these people Viagra and we'd have an Iranian vampire oil field orgy. Which when I think about it, I don't really want to see that.
Maybe the director considers it a Western because they're from the West Coast. Also, not only, you know, they went to a West Coast film school, UCLA in California. So kind of like, you know, a little bit of a Western there. But also like to foreign countries where the West America is the Western country. But also it has a lot of elements that are outside of America. So is it a Western like a foreign Western, or is it a Western like the California West Coast? The movie's all fucking over the place, chat. The movie's all fucking over the place.
Or maybe I do.
Next segment break, 55 minutes.
How do you know when a vampire is in love? When she has a whole neck offered to her on a platter and she decides to snuggle. The eternal vampirist dilemma. Do I suck his blood or rest my head on his chest? And it's telescoped into a whole sequence about Arash trying to find himself and the vampirist trying to find herself, and then the two of them finding each other. The sensual vampire is played by Sheila Vand. Actually, sensual is the wrong word because she doesn't really show that in any direct way. But Sheila Vand is second-generation Iranian. She's a pretty accomplished actress. She grew up in Palo Alto, California. She appeared on Broadway opposite Robin Williams, done a lot of TV work. Arash Marandi, the male lead, is pretty much known for this one film. Marshall Manesh, as the junkie father, is the most accomplished member of the cast. He's been acting since the 70s. First came to America to tour with the Persian Theater Group. He was in True Lies. That was actually his first film, working for James Cameron. He's done 100 features and TV shows, maybe 40 commercials. Mojan Marno, the striking brunette who plays the prostitute, she has a very distinguished acting background. She went to Phillips Academy in Massachusetts. She got a BA in Comparative Lit at Barnard College. She got a master's in acting at Yale School of Drama. She worked at the Guthrie in Minnesota, the Public Theater in New York. She speaks 5 languages: English, French, Farsi, Spanish, German. She's a playwright, has a one-woman show. She's performed at Berkeley Rep. She was a regular on House of Cards. What all these actors have in common is an Iranian heritage. Dominic Raines, the dead pimp, he was born in Tehran. He's done lots of TV. Rome Chadanlou as the woman that Arash was dancing with at the party, the one who gives him the molly. She's done several TV series. She's a fine artist, a photographer, a director of music videos. But all these disparate Iranian heritage actors came together and apparently agreed on this very strange acting style. It's such an ensemble because they all seem to understand the rules of expression as set out by Anna Lily Amarpour, who is still kind of an enigma. Anna Lily was born in Margate, England. She went to middle school in Miami, and then they moved to Bakersfield, where she was into Mexican gangs and mall culture and skateboarding. And then she went to art school, and then she went to UCLA Film School, and then she's out there making this Farsi movie that goes to Sundance and becomes an art house favorite. I'm inclined to call her a female Tarantino because she steals from everybody. Spaghetti westerns for the music, the tone of David Lynch, the visual look of Coppola. I mentioned Rumblefish. You got French New post-punk. You got no wave. Remember when people talked about no wave? After punk, after new wave, there was no wave, which means it wasn't punk and it wasn't new wave. It's like being a musical atheist. You define yourself by not accepting any other genre of music. Anyway, I'm getting way too deep into this stuff. We got a badass skateboarding vampire in love with the Iranian James Dean, small-time drug dealer and thief, and she has reasons to kill him, and he has reasons to mistrust her, and so, of course, sparks are gonna fly, but probably not in bed. All right, back to the movie. Can vampires even have regular sex? Only have sex that ends in death. I'm not too clear on that. We went through this same discussion when we showed Daughters of Darkness last summer. From the vampire point of view, it'd be like having sex with a terminal cancer patient, right? You know you're gonna outlive your partner. This movie kind of reminds me of this off-Broadway play that they used to advertise in Greenwich. Had these little posters on the telephone poles, and the poster said, "A dark story about death, depression, and despair." And they were sold out every night. Because in New York, that's like saying you just won the lottery. So this is the same thing, California style, or Sundance.
It's California style, ladies and gentlemen. Chat. It's an Iranian vampire western art house horror noir film. Okay? It's got a lot going on here.
Has anybody here been to Sundance?
That's clearly the California style of filmmaking. It's an Iranian vampire western horror noir, and it's an art house film. It's got California written all over it.
The Sundance Film Festival? Yeah, me neither. I have this image of everybody in the theater stroking their chins as they watch the films for the first time. Yeah, I think I know what it means, but you go first. You know, well, it's about life, and it's about death. You know how people talk about films that they don't really understand? It's a fever dream, Joe Bob. It's a mesmerizing mind fuck. You know, I really want to stick a 48 in their face and say, okay, if you don't say one truthful thing about this movie, I'm going to blow your head off. But then again, I don't want to go to the Ellis unit in Huntsville. That's death row in Huntsville. We have a real death row in Texas. We actually kill people who kill people. So don't kill anybody at Sundance. Although in Utah, that's where you'd be tried. You can choose firing squad. hanging or firing squad, your choice. They're very progressive in Utah. Whereas in Texas, it's just hurry up and order that goddamn last meal. We can't wait all day to kill you.
Next segment break. 1 hour, 4 minutes.
Let's talk about the transvestite waltzing with the balloon. On second thought, let's not. Why does our vampiress eat a homeless guy instead of the hooker who just keyed her boyfriend's car? There are some things that are just beyond explanation, aren't there? So what do we know about Anna Lily Amirpour? She likes to take LSD. She started making movies when she was 12. A massacre movie in middle school. She prepares her actors by giving them playlists of music. She designs her whole movies around the music. She likes decay, desolation, loneliness. She thinks of oil derricks and oil pumps as prehistoric monsters sucking the earth. And she says her stories are like funguses that grow backwards. That's a quote. Okay, back to the movie. Oh, sorry, that would be fungi that grow backward. I'm trying to think what that looks like. Y'all got any LSD?
Next segment break. A girl walks home alone at night. 1 hour, 21 minutes.
You know, she had a chance to kill that guy several scenes back. But I guess the final straw is when he forcibly injects his favorite hooker with heroin. Which is ironic because now he's a paying customer and she's a willing seller. So the interesting twist now in this Western horror romance fairy tale love story is that the enigmatic vampiress has just killed the father of the man she's apparently in love with, setting up later dilemmas. See, I think this movie is too deep for me. When I first saw it, I thought I knew what it meant, but listen to these comments by the director, Anna Lily Amirpour. It's not an Iranian film, and it's not an American film. It's set in my brain, and my brain includes Iran. Okay. When we get together to make a film, we get into each other's spirit and soul. I think maybe I make films to make friends. Okay. Anna Lily. She says she wrote the script in English, but she was thinking in Farsi. Okay. When she started working on it, I couldn't catch up to myself. The energy was nuclear. There was this beautiful galaxy of awesome energy. You're on this vision quest. If it starts with it means something to you, and then you're bringing these people into that space, then you're on this vision quest that's so rad. Yeah, it's meta. Brains inside of brains. It's really intimate. It's like being inside the blob. It's always moving. Okay. Yeah, and that would explain the gorilla ear piercing right after the vampire says she's into Lionel Richie. Okay, now I get that. And now for the existential conclusion, too. A girl walks home alone at night. If a storm was coming, would it matter? You know how he says, storm was coming, would it matter? What is that? A koan? Is that a koan? What's a koan? A koan is a wise saying that leads you toward enlightenment, right? A koan is like, if the Pope craps in the woods, is he Catholic? That would be a Baptist koan.
Anna Lily should have honestly been invited. She should have been a special guest here on The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob, because just to hear her describe the movie or just talk about it, I think would be fucking hilarious. I'm not sure if she's still alive or not. This is the first time I've actually heard about one of her movies. A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. But I think it would make for a fucking fantastic episode. Just to hear her talk and try to describe this fucking film would be great. Next segment break after the end credits.
Okay, a lot lot of people hate that ending, and I understand why they hate it, but I kind of like it. I was thinking the whole time that she would not try to kill him, but he might try to kill her, and then she would have to kill him. And it'd be some kind of ironic conclusion that says, this is why two lonely people can't be together, blah, blah, blah. But the idea that he knows she's probably a monster and she knows he's an opportunist who can't be trusted, but they still feel a bond, and then they drive off into nowhere, I kind of like the hopelessness of that, or maybe not hopelessness, but the tiny sliver of hope of that ending. On the other hand, it could have been an action sequence, and they still could have driven off together. So it's weird that when she gets to the most cinematic moment of the whole story, she turns all shy and she avoids that conflict. So this movie was kind of a sleeper hit at the Sundance Film Festival, and it became one of the darlings of the art house circuit, and then it led directly to Anna Lily Amirpour getting a much bigger job, directing a script she wrote called The Bad Batch, which came out in 2016, and it sank like a porcelain toilet seat in a kidney-shaped swimming pool. Even though it had an all-star cast, it had Keanu Reeves, Jim Carrey was in it, Suki Waterhouse, wandered around the deserts of West Texas for 2 hours.
Chat, the director, Anna Lily, made a movie after this one. It's called The Bad Batch. It's got Keanu Reeves and Jim Carrey. After she created this Iranian vampire Western art house horror noir romance movie, which isn't Iranian, it's not American, it takes place apparently all inside of her head. After she created this, and apparently made a book, A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, she got to work on a movie with Keanu Reeves and Jim Carrey. Hollywood at its fucking finest, ladies and gentlemen. She went to UCLA in California, so they might be playing some favoritism, but it sounds like Hollywood at its fucking finest.
Bad reviews, bad box office, lightning did not strike twice. A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, though, has continued to play film festivals and art houses and niche streaming services like this one. They call us a niche streaming service. And if 100 people watch the movie, 100 people will have 100 different reactions, which is sort of the nature of the beast when you're talking about extremely personal visions. Listen to this review. Who took my review? Here you go. Thank you, Austin. And this is somebody who loves the film. To appreciate the substance of the film, you must have a good knowledge of Farsi, Persian culture, feminism, Freud, and perhaps Lacan. And then he goes on to say that you might need to also know about Zoroastrianism and Iranian television. So, sorry, I need to go back to college for 6-7 years so I can enjoy this movie. Who is Lacan? It's a French guy, right? Lacan, he's either a post-structuralist or a deconstructionist or a psychoanalytic symbolist. It would help if I knew what any of those words mean, but he's a French guy, right? So what this critic is saying is that you need to be able to speak Persian and understand French intellectuals, and then all of a sudden, voila, the skateboarding vampirist will make perfect sense, especially if you have a lot of kathumpa techno music playing in the background while you're dropping acid. Okay, every once in a while we have to go hipster on you just to keep you guessing, and that was pretty much super hipster. So, in fact, that was so hipster, there are fanboys in Madison, Wisconsin having orgasms right now while they're drinking their craft vodka at a Britpop dive bar with a tattered copy of Lacan in their Jan Sport backpack. So, Darcy, come over here.
Darcy, ladies and gentlemen. Darcy, the lovely male
like
girl.
The girl in the movie. You like this movie, right?
I do.
Because it's depressing and gray and post-structuralist.
Because the vampire kicks ass.
You look like you could kick some ass yourself in that outfit.
The vampire skateboarder who hunts women walking alone home at night is a badass. It's just simple, all right? And I think if we were to ask Anna Lily, you know, what is one word you would use to describe this movie? She'd just say badass.
Oh my god, I totally could. But right now, I want you to look at this drawing, which is awesome, and it came to us from a kick-ass fan named Kit Bender in Ellensburg, Washington.
Where is that? You lived in Washington, right?
I did. I lived in Port Orchard.
Okay, where is Ellensburg?
Pretty far from Port Orchard.
What is Ellensburg known for?
God, wow. Artist.
Wow, we got a whole thing here.
I know, it's
Like this
amazing.
drawing. Wow, that's me, right?
I think it's supposed to be.
Okay. Dear Joe Bob, I want to thank you for introducing me to so many amazing monster movies. I've always been a fan of monster movies and cult classics. I just show in the mid-90s and I became an instant fan. I wish I'd written into the show as a kid, but it just never crossed my mind. A lot of my friends in school were either not allowed to watch your show or had to go to bed early. I even remember that I used to retell the jokes you'd tell at the end of Monster Vision in front of my homeroom class in middle school. Thankfully, my homeroom teacher thought your jokes were a riot and encouraged me to keep them coming. That is really good because your homeroom teacher could have been fired for telling some of those jokes in middle school. I'm slowly getting my boyfriend to watch all of my favorites that frequented Monster Vision. I think he has a hard time with the really rough body horror at times. Now that I think about it, all of my female friends have a hard time getting their boyfriends and husbands to watch horror movies. Us girls have to get together on our own from time to time and watch movies because our sweethearts are too squeamish. I'll definitely be checking out your new show. I still love watching old clips of the old show, though. Thank you for everything you do, Kit Bender, Ellensburg, Washington. That's weird because I thought our audience was mostly male. So is this a new thing, squeamish hipster boyfriends? And what else you got?
Awesome.
I know you liked Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, but did you understand the movie?
Yeah.
So what's the ultimate meaning of the movie?
Lonely people falling in love.
Well, that's kind of a topic, though. That's not the meaning of the movie.
Love is complicated.
Do you believe that love is complicated?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, all right. Well, this will make you feel better. Last week I ate at a Chinese-German restaurant. An hour later, I was hungry for power.
That's the whole joke.
Well, they don't have to be long. Okay, one more. What's the difference between a northern zoo and a southern zoo?
Tell me.
On each cage in a northern zoo, there's a description of the animal. On each cage of a southern zoo, there's a recipe.
Sorry, Joe Bob.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Ghosts and Goblins. Witches and Wizards. Vampires and Werewolves. I'm trying to get the next episode to play here, but it's, what is going on? Here we go. Okay. A little bit of technical difficulties. Ladies and gentlemen, Ghosts and Goblins, Witches and Wizards, Vampires and Werewolves. We will be back very quickly, and then we will end on episode 14, The Stuff. Okay? Ghosts and Goblins, Witches and Wizards, Vampires and Werewolves. I will be right back. Grab yourself a snack, maybe some popcorn, maybe some ice cream, maybe you need a drink. I'm sipping on the Arnold Palmer half and half, iced tea, and lemonade. Or what? Make yourselves comfortable, and we will finish our watch along in just a few minutes. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, ghosts and goblins, witches and wizards, vampires and werewolves. We are back. This is episode 14 of The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob. On this episode, Joe Bob will be watching and talking about the movie The Stuff. So thank you for joining me tonight, everybody. I appreciate it so much. If you stay with me throughout all of these watch-alongs, even just to be up this late means a lot to me. So thank you for joining me. And now episode 14, The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob, The Stuff.
You know, I'm proud to be a Texan and everything, but Texas is friggin' ugly. If you drive from Texarkana to El Paso, which will take you about 9 days, you'll see maybe one thing you want to take a picture of. That mountain outside Fort Davis. I don't even remember the name of it, where they have the telescope up there where you can see into outer space because nobody wants to live in Fort Davis, so there's no lights to interfere with that telescope. Other than that, it's basically railroad tracks, water towers, oil pumps, and mesquite. People say, Texas, land of the mesquite tree. First of all, it's a mesquite bush. Second, it's a weed. Third, the only reason we have it is that we were jerks about the way we let the cattle forage wherever the heck they wanted to eat. And so after a few decades, they ate up all the vegetation that holds the soil in place. And the mesquite weed moved in to ugly us up even more. I love Texas.
Okay, we are just going to mute the audio because YouTube gets a little on the offensive side when you start playing songs you're not supposed to. So once the episode starts up again, we will unmute it and we will continue the watch along here. But thank you, ladies and gentlemen, ghosts and goblins, witches and wizards, vampires and werewolves, for joining me again. Again, tonight we are watching episodes 13 and 14, and tomorrow we will do the finale with 15, 16, and 17, and that will be the end of Season 4. After that, we'll do Season 5 in September. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Joe Bob Briggs, take it away. Episode 14, The Stuff.
Hey there, I'm Joe Bob Briggs, and most of you know what a huge Larry Cohen fan I am. Larry Cohen is the only director I know of that when one of his movies is playing on late night TV, you automatically know it's a Larry Cohen, even if you've never seen the movie.
Joe Bob Briggs' favorite director, Larry Cohen.
Something about the way he does the lighting, or maybe the New York lingo or something, I'm not sure. But there's a Larry Cohen style that's unmistakable. And so tonight we're showing the worst Larry Cohen movie ever made.
Joe Bob Briggs loves his Larry Cohen movies, his favorite director. But tonight, apparently, it's the worst movie from Larry Cohen.
So, Darcy, get ready for the social media, because Darcy the Mail Girl will be fielding your tweets, your emails, your Instas, your Snapchats. Do we have Snapchat? Facebook, Tinder. Can they talk to us on Tinder?
They can talk to me on Tinder.
Okay, well, basically, all roads lead to Darcy. But I want you to understand something. The worst Larry Cohen movie ever made is still better than 50% of the movies we show on The Last Drive-In. This movie is The Stuff. And I know The Stuff has ardent defenders. It's kind of a love-hate thing. And The Stuff is Larry's statement on American consumerism. All his movies are satire on the cigarette industry, the alcohol industry, the soft drink industry, the fast food industry, the advertising industry, the media, the Food and Drug Administration. Larry has at least 2 movies that target the FDA. What other filmmaker routinely attacks the Food and Drug Administration as part of his body of work? Only Larry. And you know, speaking of consumerism, where I'm sitting right now, only about 1 mile from the world headquarters of the Kimberly-Clark Corporation, and I think I'm going to have to boycott them. You know, and I'm sure they're scared of that, and I don't like to scare them, but let me just say this straight up. Yeah, all you are is a $46 billion company with 43,000 employees doing business in 175 countries. Obviously, this is going to be rough on your corporate social compliance division, and yes, that is a thing. But I doubt you have the resources to withstand a concentrated social media campaign conducted by the drive-in movie critic of Grapevine, Texas. I'm just saying, sometimes you have to take a stand. Because a few months back, Kimberly-Clark announced that they would no longer market man-sized Kleenex, a product that they have sold since 1956 and which continues to be popular with millions of man-sized people around the world. Now, man-sized means a big, soft, fluffy Kleenex. That's all it means. It's bigger than normal Kleenex because you just might be a messier than average person because you're man-sized. It was invented in the Kimberly-Clark laboratories in Neenah, Wisconsin as an alternative to the cotton handkerchief, which most men in the 50s kept in their jacket. They carried one of those in their jacket pocket. It was gross.
Personally, I use some Clorox disinfectant wipes. I like the Mr. Clean as well. Mr. Clean with the lemon scent. You know, big bald guy. He sells the Mr. Clean products. Not really sure what I'm using on my bathroom. I just know it's some kind of like bubble foam-tastic. I think that's literally the name, like bubble foam-tastic. It's fucking great though. It cleans it spotless. I'm not too big on the Kleenex stuff though. I do go with Clorox.
That was horribly gross. We welcomed man-sized Kleenex.
For the laundry, I do like Oxy. I do like OxyClean. A little bit of Downy in there. Some Glade. You know, make it smell nice. But I'm not too big on the Kleenex products.
At any rate, 62 years after its introduction, somebody started a social media campaign to hammer Kimberly-Clark for being sexist. Why is big fluffy Kleenex called man size? And this is the remarkable part of it, maybe women are bigger than men, huh? How about that? And then when enough Twitter and Instagram and Facebook accounts ended up dogpiling the company for enough days, there was this strange announcement out of Kimberly-Clark headquarters in the city of Irving, Texas, which, by the way, is where we are right now, and which also shares a border with my hometown of Grapevine, Texas. So you can already see how nasty this is going to get. Anyway, Kimberly-Clark made this announcement. Man size was history, said these social compliance experts.
Also, Clorox with bleach is really good too for the bathroom. Clorox with bleach, that'll get her done, Chad. That'll definitely get her done. But for me, I gotta be honest, I'm more of a Clorox kind of guy. Clorox disinfectant and Mr. Clean lemon.
Kimberly-Clark. Henceforth, the big fluffy Kleenex will be called extra large. And they didn't give a reason. And the statement was kind of sheepish in the rationale department, especially since the man-sized brand had served the company so well. Now, before I go into the specific reasons for my Kimberly-Clark boycott,
I'll find out the bathroom cleaner for you when our first segment break comes. I'll find out what bathroom cleaner I'm using, but I know it's fucking fantastic.
I would like to analyze the word man size. And Austin, can I have my clipboard for this? I need to analyze the word man size as it relates to discrimination. All right. There are 193 nations in the world, all right? There are actually 195, but we don't have stats on Palestine or Vatican City.
And with the Clorox wipes, I mean, I use that shit on everything. I disinfect everything in my room, from the fucking laptop here to the cell phone. I gotta wipe down my PS5 controllers every couple of days just because I want those to be nice and clean. I used it on the microphone here. Mostly on like the tables, like glass surfaces, stuff like that. I'm sure that it could work on the tables too, but usually you want to like use something different, something, and then like polish it down because that's kind of like more wood. Why is the ice cream man rolling around at fucking... It's damn near like 9 o'clock at night in the ice cream. I just heard the ice cream truck. That's some shit out of a horror movie right there. It's almost 9 o'clock p.m. here in Buffalo, New York. And I hear the ice cream truck outside of my window. I mean, I guess, like I said, it is Labor Day weekend, but I don't think there's going to be any fucking kids out this late, my guy. I'm pretty sure school started for them already, so probably not going to make a lot of money selling ice cream. It sounds like he's right outside the window, too, but fuck it. School started for the kiddies. They're back in fucking high school, college. They got a whole bunch of homework to take care of. They're not worried about the ice cream truck and the ice cream man rolling down the block right now. We are watching episode 14 of The Stuff with Joe Bob Briggs, and when our segment break comes, I'm going to find out the name of that bathroom cleaner, chat.
So I'm really sorry that we don't have numbers for Vatican City, because A, 95% of those men live there, and B, some of those priests probably get nasty colds from wearing those dresses that blow open in the wind. And I know they're not dresses, they're hassocks or cassocks, something that ends in sucks. All right, so, okay. Of those 193 nations, the number of places where the average woman is taller than the average man. Let's see, I'm going to triple check these numbers so we can be absolutely truthful. Carry the 5, take it out to the third decimal point. Okay, I got it. That number would be 0. I mean, there's one country that comes close. In Nigeria, men have an average height of 167 centimeters, which is a shade under 5'6". And women average 160 centimeters, which is right at 5'3". In Ireland, on the other hand, the ratio is 179 to 163, meaning the men are 5'10 and a half, and the women are 5'4". The United States, which, let's face it, we have citizens born in all 195 nations. We're more or less representative. Men, 176 centimeters, a little over 5'9". Women, 160 centimeters, or 5'3". In other words, men appear to be man size. Of course, height is not the only standard of man size. Since North America is the fattest region on the planet, we have 177-pound average weight and rising compared to the global average of 136. We would certainly need to take girth into consideration when predicting which gender is most likely to need a man-sized Kleenex. So once again, let's take a look at those numbers. 193 nations. We're going to determine which ones have an average female weight greater than the average male weight. And that number would be 0. Again, in the United States, the average guy weighs 196 pounds. The average gal weighs 168. Actually, the average American woman now weighs as much as the average American man did in 1965. So I hope that man-sized Kleenex has been bulked up over the last 5 decades. Perhaps the outraged feminists who protested against the word man-size were weighing in above 196 themselves and felt belittled by being lumped in with another gender. But the bottom line is that nobody has to worry about it anymore because, like most corporations that find themselves targeted by idiotic social media campaigns, the solution chosen here was simply to give the idiots what they wanted. I'm not standard algorithm is, 9,000 likes on Twitter, 5,000 reposts on Facebook, 30 mocking mashups of a Kleenex box on Instagram. But whenever the protest hits critical mass, the solution is always publicly abase yourself and say, yes, indeed, you were right. Please spend the day pumping your fist and high-fiving one another because you have forced us to abandon a brand we've stood by for 62 years. And that's why I'm announcing my boycott of Kimberly-Clark. I don't want to do business with a company that can't be trusted to stand by its own version of the truth, even when it's scientifically provable. This is a company that deals in chemical processes, forestry, manufacturing, and the safety of the world's lower bodies. Because almost all their products, Huggies, Depends, Kotex, 12 brands of toilet paper, deal with sensitive areas below the waist, if you know what I mean, and I think you do. Do we want these guys to be ruthlessly scientific so that their products? I think so. How can we trust them if somebody simply become exasperated and they say, okay, you're right. Men and women are the same size. Who wants a scientist who can be beaten into submission so that he changes his opinion? But there's an even more important reason. Every time a company craters on a silly issue like this, it encourages 17,000 more internet trolls with time on their hands, and you know who you are, to start a campaign against tomorrow's bogeyman. One day it's plastic straws, the next day it's Kleenex, the day after that it's Dr. Seuss books, eating up everybody's time, making our economy less efficient, turning truth into an elastic toy that can be smashed into any shape you want. So Kimberly Clark is an enabler. They're a troll enabler. They're a busybody enabler. They're an enabler of public scolds and annoying grandstanders. They're an enabler of stupidity. Hence, this is the stupidity boycott. I'll be adding other companies to the list and recruiting an army of rationalists as we try to reclaim the internet. And meanwhile, I have an eye on Klooch. You know what Klooch is? Klooch is the best-selling facial tissue in Poland. And it's owned by Kimberly Clark. That means they have one more chance to get off the boycott list. They can tell the men of Poland there is indeed a concept called man-sized. It means bigger than women. It's something they understand in Warsaw, unlike Irving, Texas. The word for man-sized in Polish, I looked this up so the marketing interns over at Kimberly. The word for man-sized is wielkościczłowieka. So I want to see that on the drugstore shelves of Krakow. And speaking of corporate espionage, Michael Moriarty is Larry Cohen's favorite leading man, even though he's a character actor. And he stars as a conniving industrial saboteur in the sensitive story of a gooey white substance that resembles yogurt, ice cream, whipped cream, and mayonnaise that gurgles up out of the surface of the earth and gets packed into tanker trucks so it can be distributed around the country to fast food outlets that market it through elaborate television commercials as the ultimate addictive dessert. But unfortunately, it makes your eyeballs explode and it makes your face fall off. Can a hot babe from the modeling industry and an 11-year-old boy join forces with a chocolate chip tycoon and a rogue militia from Georgia to save mankind? Of course they can. But only if several thousand people get blobbed to death first. And come to think of it, this stuff is a lot like The Blob, but with no Michael Landon. Let's look at those drive-in totals and crank this baby up. We have 29 dead bodies, 2 fistfights, 1 motor vehicle chase, 1 brawl, 1 rabid junkie dog, ground seepage goo tasting, exploding heads, exploding bodies, multiple exploding buildings, exploding Garrett Morris, goo burning, industrial workers sliced in half by an 18-wheeler, organized child abuse, bureaucrat devoured by a canine, flaming motel room, food tossing, not to be confused with cookie tossing, 1 sucker punch, infested attack bed, gratuitous bikini models, kung fu, shaving cream foo, Drive-In Academy Award nominations for Michael Moriarty as the ex-FBI agent who says, no one is as dumb as I appear to be, Andrew Markovici as the ad agency babe who decides 10 minutes after meeting Michael Moriarty that she wants to aardvark all over his room at the Sherry Netherland Hotel. Scott Bloom as the kid who nobody believes when he keeps screaming, it's going to kill you, it's going to kill you all. Paul Sorvino as the Dr. Strangelove type militia leader in the Georgia castle who says, we are under alien attack by a popular dessert. Garrett Morris as the famous Amos clone who just might be an alien invader, and Larry Cohen, the writer-director, for doing things the drive-in way. 2.5 stars. Joe Bob says, check it out.
2.5 stars. The Stuff.
See, I can see why The Stuff is making a comeback in 2019 because, like you're a vegan, right? Aren't you, Darcy? You're vegan. Everybody's obsessed with ingredient labels. Does that have gluten in it? How many carbs is in that thing? How many calories per serving? Do they add sugar to those cranberries? You ever go to a restaurant with a vegan? You know, it'll take you hours. You know, people are totally paranoid. They'll stick the wrong thing down their gullet. So the future is noodles and broccoli. That's all we're going to eat. Whole grain noodles and a bowl of broccoli. Go ahead, chow down on that. Except for you, Darcy. You're the friendly vegan, you know? Because we have food here on the set that I'm sure it makes you puke. because it makes regular people puke too that are non-vegan. So, but you don't complain. You probably got noodles and broccoli stashed in your dressing room or something. Am I right? Tofu. Just kill me.
Okay, chat. First segment break at 21 minutes. I will be right back. We're gonna break a rule here. Even though we turned the lights on already, we'll turn it on once more. Alright, chat. I found it out for you. Damn it. It is OxyClean. We got the OxyClean here. You probably can't see it because I live like a vampire and there's not a whole lot of light in my room. But this is the OxyClean Foamtastic. This bubble shit, that'll get the job done, chat. I'm telling you, this is my favorite for the bathroom. So we got that OxyClean Foamtastic. Comes in with like the green cap and like a purple can. That shit is great. OxyClean, for sure. OxyClean is my go-to. And then, like I said, we got the Clorox disinfectant wipes. Clorox disinfectant. Use those pretty much every single day. And then Mr. Clean. Mr. Clean Lemon. There he is. So we got OxyClean, Mr. Clean, and Clorox. Just wanted to get that information for you, chat. OxyClean, Mr. Clean, and Clorox. But I'm telling you, that OxyClean Foamtastic Bubbles, that's the way to go.
And so the great Danny Aiello becomes the first on-screen victim of the stuff. Although I don't think it really counts because he was eaten by his dog, wasn't he? He wasn't actually killed by the stuff itself. One trademark of a Larry Cohen film is that he always has a cast that's too good for the budget. Perfect example, Danny Aiello in a role that's basically 2 scenes. And of course, Michael Moriarty as Mo, the industrial spy, who we saw earlier this season in Q the Winged Serpent, which was the first time he worked with Larry Cohen. And this would be the second time. And they ended up making 5 movies together. Q the Winged Serpent is actually the best Larry Cohen film, I think. It's either that one or It's Alive. There's only one thing wrong with the Davis baby. It's alive. So we've got kind of the yin and the yang of Larry's work here, because this one reads like an unfinished idea to me. Okay, there's this toxic stuff that's highly addictive. We're in the early 80s, so you're going to think cocaine. And it's run by an evil corporate empire. And then it seems like it ought to twist 2 or 3 more times. But no, it's just a mystery to figure out who makes the stuff and find out where it comes from. So anyway, I already talked about Larry's whole career the last time we had a Cohen movie. So I thought this time I would go into an area that not many people talk about. And that's all the writing that Larry Cohen did for television. Back in the golden age of TV, the 60s. He actually started in the 50s. He lied about his age and he wrote scripts for NBC when he was just 17 years old. His first script was called Night Cry. It was an episode of Kraft Mystery Theater back in the days of live drama in New York City, 1958. Jack Klugman starred in that as a dirty cop. And then the first thing that he wrote that was horror was for an NBC series called Way Out, which was a Roald Dahl series. It's an episode called False Face about an evil special effects makeup artist who wants to have the perfect Quasimodo face when he makes an appearance on stage. And so he uses a model who is really scarred that way. But
What in the fuck? Oh, thank you for the subscription. Definitely appreciate it. Tristan Betty, thank you for the subscription there on Twitch. Greatly appreciated, my man. Love to see you hanging out with us tonight. We're watching some Last Drive-In with Joe Bob. This is season 4. This is episode 14. And we are covering episodes 13 and 14 tonight. Tomorrow we'll be back with 15, 16, and 17 for a finale. But thank you very much for your subscription. And that was on YouTube. So I think I just said Twitch, but it actually is a YouTube subscription. So thank you very much. It's greatly appreciated. I appreciate that, my man.
After he puts the makeup on, he can never take the face off. He's exchanged faces with the other guy. Very Twilight Zone-y. And the problem with these great television things that Larry wrote is you can't really watch them online. You got to go to the Paley Center for Media, which is on 52nd Street around the corner from Radio City Music Hall, and you tell them what episode you want, and they'll check it out to you. You have to watch it in a little cubicle. Anyway, my point is he was a child prodigy. He also performed stand-up comedy in the Catskills when he was still a teenager. And then he wrote a 1-hour drama about a failed Catskills comedian played by Henny Youngman that'll just break your heart. That was an episode of the United States Steel Hour in 1961. And then in the early 60s, all the TV shows started moving out of New York and moving to L.A., and they didn't do so much live drama anymore. But once he got out to L.A., he created one of the greatest series ever, Branded. Chuck Connors as Jason McCord, the sole survivor of the Bitter Creek Massacre, obviously modeled on Custer's Last Stand. And every episode opened with a ceremony where Chuck Connors is stripped of his rank and they break his saber and drum him out of the U.S. cavalry because he was a coward at the battle. But in reality, he has to keep silent about the real causes of the massacre in order to protect the memory of the senile general, apparently suffering dementia, who was in charge that day. So Chuck Connors is this condemned man who struggles every week to redeem his honor, misunderstood, despised, abused, but he can't do anything about it except try to live an honorable life. And he carries that broken saber with him to remind him of who he once was. If you do go down to the Paley Center, watch 2 episodes of Branded, Survival and The Vindicator. Powerful stuff. You'll see what I mean. Okay, I'm going to do some more Larry Cohen trivia at the next break. But right now, back to the movie. Is anybody else old enough to remember Branded? You know, that's Branded. All but one man died there at Bitter Creek, and they say he ran away. Branded, marked with a coward's shame. What do you do when you're branded? Well, you fight for your name. Larry Cohen loves outsiders. All his movies are devoted to finding the ultimate outsider. That's why I like Michael Moriarty so much. You see Michael Moriarty on the street, you don't think, wow, I'd love to have a beer with that guy. You think, I hope he doesn't talk to me. Right? Perfect Larry Cohen anti-hero.
Okay, next segment break for the stuff at 30 minutes.
Okay, what do we know about the stuff so far? See, one problem I have with this movie is that the rules seem to change and transmogrify. Is that a word? There's a transmogrification of the physical properties of the stuff. It apparently gives you lockjaw, it makes your eyes bug out, it makes your skin porous like a marshmallow so that when Michael Moriarty and Garrett Morris kung fu you, you bend like Gumby and your flesh gapes open like a roto-rooter going through a piece of styrofoam. What is Garrett Morris doing in this movie? They obviously needed a black actor to play Chocolate Chip Charlie, a thinly veiled version of Famous Amos, the chocolate chip mogul from L.A. I actually think he's from Florida, but he launched Famous Amos cookies in L.A. So anyway, Garrett Morris is like this phantom performer. He's done hundreds of shows, but even his most famous role, when he was an original cast member of Saturday Night Live, he's the forgotten one. He's the outsider guy. Remember that? He did a great Richard Pryor impression on that show. He did Sammy Davis. He did the Latin baseball player, of course. Baseball been very, very good to me. He did the Weekend Update translator for the deaf. That used to crack me up, but not supposed to laugh at that anymore. But Just a few years later, Garrett Morris is a little bit bitter because Aykroyd and Belushi in horror films. He used to tell people, I made 5 horror films in a row. That's how bad my life was. So he wasn't a big fan of horror films. And apparently he didn't get along that well with Larry Cohen because in later years, he didn't want to talk about this movie or about Larry. Interesting guy, though. He was actually trained at Juilliard as a singer. He'd grown up in New Orleans. He started singing in the Baptist church, and he was a soloist for Harry Belafonte's singing group. Then he arranged music for Harry Belafonte. And before he was on Saturday Night Live, he had a flourishing stage career in New York, mostly musicals. He did Porgy and Bess, Showboat. He was a public school teacher for a while in New York City. But besides the massive theater work he's done, he's been in 100 TV shows and movies. Still working at the age of 82. Unlike Chevy Chase and Dan Aykroyd, by the way. He was in Ant-Man. I think they put him in that because back in the SNL days, he was in a sketch as Ant-Man. Somebody told me that. I don't remember that sketch. Anyway, I wanted to mention one more Larry Cohen credit that nobody talks about. He wrote for a TV series called The Defenders that was on CBS.
And that was like his big film achievement, being in the Marvel Ant-Man. I'm not a very big fan of the Ant-Man series with Marvel. A lot of the Marvel movies, like, I will say this, Chad. I prefer DC Universe over Marvel. I'm not a fan of the Deadpool stuff. I don't like the Deadpool movies at all. Those are very overrated to me. But I definitely prefer DC Universe to Marvel Universe. Marvel to me just doesn't take a lot of their characters serious. My favorite superhero of all time is Batman. So a DC character, Batman is my favorite. And also DC stands for Detective Comics. And I'm just really into detective stuff, mysteries, murder mysteries. Batman is the world's greatest detective. The universes of Batman are always a lot darker and always a lot grittier than you would see in like a Marvel universe. I do like certain Marvel characters, don't get me wrong. My favorite character is probably Blade. I like Ghost Rider, I like Punisher, Spider-Man, Thor, Hulk, Incredible Hulk, Iron Man. So there are Marvel characters that I do like. I actually have a Morbius poster up here on the wall. Morbius got a lot of hate, but I would rather watch fucking Morbius over a Deadpool movie or an Ant-Man movie, I'll tell you that. Guardians of the Galaxy, I will watch that as well. X-Men, I mean, I loved X-Men, the original stuff. Before there was ever this whole like Marvel universe. That's back when Marvel was actually doing okay. When they didn't want to create the whole book stories in the movie format. But now everything's got to be, we don't make comic books anymore. We make movies now. So DC and Marvel are always going to make, their movies because they can't really get away with doing the comic books anymore. But for me, it's DC Detective Comics because I love horror, I love detective stuff, and I love murder mysteries. So DC to me definitely is over Marvel, and Batman is my favorite superhero. So
between 1961 and 1965, it won several Emmy Awards. It was a series about a father-son team of defense attorneys. E.G. Marshall was the father, Robert Reed was the son, and Larry Cohen wrote the episode about the man who's been taken to death row, but he escapes from custody and he kills a cop to get away. Then by the time he's recaptured, they've discovered that he's innocent of the original charges that sent him to death row, but now he has to stand trial for killing the cop during his escape. Kill or Be Killed is the name of that episode, if you can find it. He wrote 9 episodes for that show, and it was a famous show at the time. He also liked stories about Soviet spies and nuclear secrets and rogue military officials, masculine characters that are sort of destructive, sometimes self-destructive, sort of like all the masculine characters in this movie we're watching. All right, back to the stuff. Larry is the master of the double twist ending. You think you know where his stories are going, and you never do. Sort of like life. Not to get too philosophical. There's this professor in Illinois. He wrote a whole academic book about the films of Larry Cohen. It has some long, fancy name. I started reading it. And the guy was talking about a script Larry wrote for the series Espionage. I don't remember when Espionage was on, but it was a story starring Fritz Weaver as a German officer who goes to England in the middle of World War II to negotiate a peace settlement in the event that Hitler's own general staff will agree to assassinate him. And it's a great episode. But in this book, the guy says it's more complex and creative than Schindler's List. So Larry is a greater artist than Steven Spielberg. Okay, so I bow to no man in my admiration for Larry Cohen, but you guys in the universities, you need to get real, okay? You're drinking too much of that bad white wine in the plastic cups at the faculty reception you go to with the elbow pads on your corduroy jackets, because, get out more. Have a hot, steamy affair with a babe in the sociology department or something. Drive down to Nashville, get crazy at a bluegrass festival. Take some selfies in front of the Superman statue in downtown Metropolis, Illinois. You sit in those cubicles all day, you start to hallucinate about pop culture. So get a grip, people.
Next segment break, 41 minutes.
Everybody's got to eat shaving cream once in a while. One of the more improbable scenes where Mo happens to be driving by at the exact moment that the kid is escaping his zombified stuff-eating family. Normally, Larry would have a little smoother melding of the two parallel plots, or three plots now if you count the Garrett Morris Chocolate Chip Charlie plot. And also, I forgive you if you had forgotten that Andrea Marcovici was in the movie. Nicole Kendall, the advertising executive who is now apparently boinking Michael Moriarty. They seem to be an item. You know what this is? I just thought of this. This is an Assemble the Squad movie. You know how in The Dirty Dozen they go round up prisoners to fight for America? Or in Ocean's 11 it's getting the old gang together from the army to pull off a heist? Or Chuck Norris assembles a team of specialists so they can go over to Vietnam and parachute into the jungle and rescue the secret prisoners of war that they forgot to rescue in the 3 movies before that. So Michael Moriarty is assembling the squad. Everybody he needs. He needs an advertising babe. He needs an 11-year-old kid who vandalizes supermarkets. He needs a disgruntled chocolate cookie tycoon who's been run out of business by the stuff. He's getting his team together to head for that little town in Georgia where all the people in the little town in Virginia where the stuff was discovered have relocated. Did I get that right? He's discovered the source of the stuff. So now Georgia is on his mind and he's ready to kick ass. Andrea Marcovici is really slumming in this movie. Larry Cohen has always had a knack for getting extremely accomplished actors to work for him. Andrea has a strong New York theater background. She worked a lot on Broadway. She co-starred with Anthony Newley. No, I'm not going to sing What Kind of Fool Am I? Every time you mention Anthony Newley on TV, you're expected to do an Anthony Newley impersonation while singing What Kind of Fool Am I? That's a tradition. She was on Broadway in that show Chaplin, where Anthony Newley was Charlie Chaplin, and she played all of his wives. I think there were 4 of them, including Paulette Goddard was one of them. Was Charlie Chaplin married to Paulette Goddard? I think he was. You know who I miss? I miss Robert Osborne. You could ask Robert Osborne this stuff, and he would know right away. And he would know what years they were married, why they got divorced. I miss Robert Osborne being in the next studio. We worked together twice at the Movie Channel and at TNT. And of course, he was always the golden age of Hollywood expert at the Hollywood Reporter. Anyway, I digress. So Andrea Marcovici played 4 wives opposite Anthony Newley. Plus, she's a singer herself. She has performed at Carnegie Hall. She was Ophelia when Sam Waterston did Hamlet at the Public Theater. So, major actress. And here she is in The Stuff. So let's let the magic continue. Back to the movie. Problem with Anthony Newley is that he couldn't sing. I mean, he was a songwriter. And in those days, there were singers on this side of the room, songwriters over here, and never the twain met. But he twanged it, you know. Like the song New York, New York, okay? Who sings that? Frank Sinatra sings that. Actually, I think it was Liza Minnelli who originated it, but, Frank Sinatra did the famous version. But whichever. It was written by Freddie Ebb and John Kander. Freddie wrote the words, John wrote the music. You don't want either of them to actually sing the song. So like Anthony Newley wrote that big song in Willy Wonka. Come with me and you'll see pure imagination. He wrote that song. You know who can sing that? Michael Bublé can sing that. Josh Groban kills with that song. Who wrote that song? Anthony Newley. You don't want him singing that song, although he probably would, and he probably did. You don't want me singing either, but I frequently do. I have Anthony Newley DNA, apparently. The only song I can really sing is Hank Williams' Move It On Over, because the big dog's moving in. But nobody sings that song anymore because it's misogynistic, right? Which is the word they use when they want to say, you're a sexist pig if you sing that song. But I do like Hank Williams' Move It On Over. So maybe I'm a sexist piglet, you know, just a little bit disgusting.
I originally wanted Jim Carrey to play the role of Willy Wonka when they made the new film. I didn't watch the most recent Willy Wonka film, Wonka. Came out just a few years ago, I think in like 2022 or 2023, something like that. But I originally wanted Jim Carrey. I guess he's making a lot more money with the Sonic franchise because he's done just about 3 movies of that now. And yes, I am more of a fan of Adam Sandler. My favorite comedian is Cat Williams. Also a fan of George Carlin, Eddie Griffin, just to name a few. But Cat Williams is my favorite. I do love Adam Sandler. Jim Carrey, I feel like, would have done a really good job as Willy Wonka, though. I definitely wanted to see that. I don't know if they offered it to him. If they didn't, it was my idea to begin with. But apparently he's doing really good for the Sonic franchise because he keeps wanting to make those movies too, so... Next segment break, 59 minutes.
Okay, one of the more improbable sequences ever filmed, even by Larry Cohen standards. And my first question would be, why did they go to the Starlight Motel? They don't appear to be horny, certainly not for each other, even though they do end up in the same bed. And the answer might surprise you. Larry Cohen got permission to use the same set and the same bed that eats Johnny Depp in Nightmare on Elm Street. Remember that scene where the blood shoots up out of the bed and onto the ceiling?
Classic scene, ladies and gentlemen. Love the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. Of course, Wes Craven created Nightmare on Elm Street and Freddy Krueger. We were just recently talking about Freddy vs. Jason today. The scene in Nightmare on Elm Street 1, the original, where Johnny Depp is engulfed by the bed, is kind of a classic scene. And then blood just splatters all over the room and the ceiling. And it's a pretty graphic scene, especially for standards back then. But Johnny Depp is definitely one of my favorite actors too. Robert Englund as well as Freddy Krueger. And I do want to say this. A lot of people hate on the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, which came out around, like, I believe it was like 2009, 2010, somewhere around then. I actually liked the remake. I actually thought that the remake wasn't that bad. I know Robert Englund wasn't playing Freddy Krueger. I also don't believe that he had a cameo in that movie. But for a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, it was actually really well. And then again, you know, they tried remaking a bunch of movies around that time. Halloween, Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th also wasn't that bad. There was a lot of different concepts than the original, of course. They wanted Jason to be more of like a how do I just he would like run around a lot instead of like do the slow pace. It had different elements than the original. I don't think it was that bad. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre remakes aren't that bad either. I actually like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remakes, 2003 and 2005. I believe one of them had Jessica Biel, but they were pretty much remakes of the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I thought that those were really good. And Halloween 2 I liked with Rob Zombie. I liked when Rob Zombie did the Halloween remakes 1 and 2. Never wanted to do a third one because he said after the second movie, it was just fucking torture. He was working with the Weinstein Company, and anytime he tried to present something to them, it was always change this or do this, or never really just went the way that he wanted it to go. And he said that making Halloween 2 was an absolute fucking disaster, which is why he never wanted to do a third one. And more recently, we've had some new installments in the Halloween franchise. I like the it was like 2018, and then Halloween Kills is good, but Halloween Ends absolutely sucked.
Which would also answer the question, why would a guy in a plaid shirt run into the room in a menacing way? The answer being, so he can be drowned sideways on the wall in a twisted column of the stuff. You might also be wondering how Mo manages to be walking past the tanker truck where Jason is trapped. Our intrepid 11-year-old is talking to the stuff. Now that's a stretch. Add to this the unexplained martial arts expertise of Andrea Marcovici as Nicole, who easily pops the eyes out of an attacker and leaves him on the road to be cut in half by the expert driving ability of Mo. And we have a trifecta of odd phenomena leading the infiltration squad to a place of absolute inept failure. They haven't gotten 1 inch closer to finding out anything important about the stuff. Meanwhile, there are these Big Brother public address announcements about ending world hunger or something, and the movie is starting to borrow from Soylent Green. What does this movie not borrow from? The Blob, obviously, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Invaders from Mars. Remember that movie had a kid just like the one here?
That's what it was. In the Friday the 13th remake, Jason wasn't like Jason Voorhees. I shouldn't have said more of like a juggernaut because that's kind of more like the original. But in the remake, they wanted him to have like more hunter kind of like things going on with him. Like he becomes like this hunter, he becomes like a scavenger. So that was the idea for Jason Voorhees in the Friday the 13th remake, which honestly, like I said, the Friday the 13th remake isn't the worst remake I've ever seen. Um, does it compete with the original? Not exactly. Like I said, some of my favorite Friday the 13th movies are Jason Takes Manhattan, Jason X, Part 4, Part 5, Freddy vs. Jason. Um, but for me, the remake for Friday the 13th really wasn't that bad. And I did like the remake for Nightmare on Elm Street. I liked when Rob Zombie did the remakes for Halloween. 1 and 2 were really good to me. And the remakes for Texas Chainsaw Massacre in 2003 and 2005, I enjoyed those as well.
But you know what we don't have? We have no villain. We have no Mr. Big running the stuff empire. And that weakens the whole thing because we don't know who or what the target is.
There's actually going to be a remake coming out very soon. I believe in December this year. They're doing a remake of Nosferatu. So I definitely am interested in that. The trailer looks fucking great. Of course, you guys know I'm a big fan of vampires and werewolf movies. So the Nosferatu remake actually looks really fucking good. And that's coming out this year, 2024, in December. So, hopefully good things happen for that as well.
Stop bitching. Back to the movie. The other thing is that the stuff itself is not that scary and moves slow. It's foamy and white. Yeah, I know it smothers you to death, but it's not like a pitchfork. I mean, a pitchfork is a better death instrument than the stuff. Also, I thought you were supposed to eat it, but apparently you don't have to eat it. It just oozes up from wherever and attacks you. Is it a fungus? Is it a spore? What's a spore? Is a spore the same as a fungus? Is it mutating mayonnaise? It's like maybe it's like one of those recalls from the Mexican restaurant where everybody eats the slimy burrito and gets poisoned or something. See, white is also a bad choice. It should have been green. He needs to get his killer liquid palette in order. White is not scary. Green is scary. Orange is scary. Especially pants, which you only find in professional golf. All the pants of professional golfers are scary colors, so you could just go by that. Watch a golf tournament. Imagine being eaten by Tiger Woods' pants. You would get a much better effect.
And when it comes to Alien versus Predator, I'm definitely more of a fan of the Predator franchise. I love stuff about Predator. Just, how there's like tribes and different variations of the Predators. It's great to always, see the Yautja stuff I did recently like the movie Prey, which is basically an installment in the Predator franchise. That was really good. Um, and again, that's kind of like a prequel to movies. Um, but I do prefer Predator as opposed to Alien, even though I will say that Alien and the Alien franchise have had some really good movies recently. I thought Prometheus was good, and Romulus is fantastic if anyone gets the chance to check those out. But I am more of a fan of the Predator franchise over the Alien franchise. And listen, chat, it really it all comes down to me being a fan of Arnold Schwarzenegger too. Okay, Arnold Schwarzenegger is gonna smoke his stogie where he wants, when he wants, and there's nothing nobody can tell him about it. Not even the Predator. Next segment break, an hour and 10.
Okay, this is where the film just goes to crazy town, with Paul Sorvino as the insane right-wing colonel and his Georgia militia attacking the stuff manufacturing facility, which is full of dead employees. And by the way, yes, that was Clara Peller of the Wendy's 1980s, the woman who said, "Where's the beef?"
The Alien vs. Predator movies are great. I do enjoy the Alien vs. Predator movies. Requiem could have definitely been better. Requiem wasn't that great. But we need another Alien versus Predator movie, and maybe that's where both of the series are headed, is into like a third installment with Alien versus Predator. Like I said, more of a Predator guys, but Alien has been doing some really good stuff recently with horror. Prometheus was good, and Romulus was good too. Covenant was all right, but definitely Prometheus and Romulus were good for me for an Alien movie. And like I said, I need more stuff about the Predator franchise though. Prey was fucking fantastic in my opinion.
Now employed by Larry Cohen to say, "Where's the stuff?" And so we're descending into a genre I would describe as comic strip satirical surrealism. Have you ever noticed that anytime Larry Cohen puts the American flag in the scene, it's always to introduce a buffoon of some sort? Although Paul Sorvino, I have to admit, he's a little bit more complex than that. Brooklyn. I think he grew up there. Son of an Italian immigrant. He wanted a career as an opera singer, but something happened to his voice. He studied at AMDA. I forget what it stands for. It's the school where all the musical theater types go to learn how to sing "I Feel Pretty" and "Don't Rain on My Parade" and stuff like that. And then he studied acting with the late, great Sanford Meisner. A lot of actors study Meisner technique, but Paul studied with Meisner. And his film credits go back to 1970 when he was in Where's Papa? He's probably best known as the mob patriarch in Goodfellas, and for a couple seasons on Law and Order when it first came out. In fact, Michael Moriarty is also known for a couple seasons on Law and Order when it first came out. But Sorvino is a triple threat. Film, TV, and Broadway, especially well known. I think he won some awards for his role in that play, That Championship Season on Broadway. Then he was the police chief in Cruising. He was the cop buddy of Mike Hammer in I, the Jury. The man's been in everything, and I'm really liking the way he's chewing the scenery for Larry in this movie. He's actually saving the movie. The movie was bogging down. It had to twist somewhere new. And so, of course, it went to Paul Sorvino's Militia Castle in rural Georgia. You know who's getting a little annoying, though? That little kid from Long Island, Jason, played by Scott Bloom in his first movie role. We get it. He's feisty. He's fearless. All right, let's move on from that, okay? So many unanswered questions to hopefully be resolved as we approach the complicated conclusion of The Stuff. Questions like, where does the stuff come from, really? And how does it work? And did they find it by accident? Is there some diabolical plan behind it? And remember what I said before? There's no villain. There's no Mr. Stuff out there. So let's hope in the few minutes remaining we get A, a villain, B, a brief explanation of what the stuff is, C, a reminder that Garrett Morris is still in this movie, and D, a purpose for Andrea Marcovici other than sleeping with Michael Moriarty. With her clothes on, by the way. What's that about? And that, stuff climbs up the wall scene at the Starlight Motel. Okay, roll the film. Did anybody here ever see a movie called Body Melt?
Oh, yeah.
These guys in Australia actually ripped off the stuff in the 90s. but with much grosser special effects, real puke-inducing close-up makeup. But my question is, if you're going to rip off Larry Cohen, you choose the stuff? You know who Rupert Grint is? Ron Weasley, Harry Potter movies. Rupert Grint's favorite movie is The Stuff. I don't know anybody whose favorite movie is The Stuff. How old is Rupert? He must be 13 by now, right? He probably just likes it for the dialogue or something. Hey, your hose is hanging out. Are you going to arrest me for indecent exposure?
Ron
Oh,
Weasley
that's not the best line.
loves
best
the
line
movie
is,
The Stuff.
You know why they call me Mo? Because every time they give me money, I want Mo. I may have that slightly wrong, but if they ever have Stuff Trivia Night on HQ, I'm going to kill it.
And me personally, too, I love Harry Potter. I've read all of the books growing up and watched all the movies as well. Little known trivia fact, when I was in preschool, I was actually suspended, not suspended, but expelled. They completely kicked me out of the school because I wore a Harry Potter t-shirt. And the school was Catholic, they were religious, so they looked down upon that kind of thing because they basically thought I was into studying black magic and witchcraft. More so maybe now today I do prefer to say that my religion is more witchcraft and Wiccan. But back then, I was just a kid who loved Harry Potter. So they expelled me from the Catholic religious school, and then I went to a public school where I spent mostly all of my years until I reached high school at South Park. But I did love Harry Potter growing up. I do love the Harry Potter stuff. Fantastic Beast is really cool too. I'm happy to see that they continue the franchise with that series. And me myself, when it comes to what school am I? What Harry Potter house am I? I'm a Slytherin. I'm Slytherin, chat. If I'm not a Slytherin, I'm a Ravenclaw. But I'm one of the two. I'm probably more Slytherin than Ravenclaw. But Ravenclaw is probably also up there too. But that's my Harry Potter house. Slytherin. And if it's not Slytherin, it's Ravenclaw. But it's only one of those two. Personally, I prefer Slytherin. And this is after the end credits.
So that's it. Andrea Marcovici makes an announcement on Right Wing Radio. I guess she goes on TV later, and the people understand, and they start setting the stuff on fire and blowing up fast food outlets, and that's the final act of the movie. Everybody just goes, oh yeah, okay, this lady makes sense, let's burn it all up. And the movie's over. And we have the exploding Garrett Morris scene, which is a great special effect. But is he an alien? Did they go outer space on us there at the end? And speaking of aliens, Darcy just handed me some emails.
The lovely mail girl.
Larry Cohen's TV work. Credits I forgot to mention, so come
Round
on
of
over,
applause
Darcy.
for Darcy.
You are really rocking the Stuff commercial cosplay look. Thank you for that.
My pleasure.
Apparently, there are more admirers of Larry's TV shows than I first realized. Besides Branded, Larry created the series The Invaders, starring Roy Thinnes as the only guy in the world who knows the aliens have landed on Earth and nobody believes him. It's kind of the same idea as Branded. Nobody believed Chuck Connors either. The elusive truth is always a concept in Larry Cohen. Very apt, very ahead of its time as a theme. Also, somebody mentioned a series Larry created called Coronet Blue, which was about a guy with amnesia searching for his identity. I got to go back and watch some of this stuff. It's all in Midtown Manhattan at the Paley Center. And Larry wrote an episode of The Fugitive also. Did you know the one nobody talks about? Blue Light. He wrote a series called Blue Light. That was a Larry Cohen series starring Robert Goulet. And Robert Goulet. It's hard to talk about Robert Goulet right now. Robert Goulet is believed to be a Nazi sympathizer and a traitor to his country, but really that's just his cover story. He's really a secret agent. Again, the publicly reviled man who is really honorable. But you know it's Robert Goulet. Do you know who Robert Goulet is?
Of course.
Well, he was probably dead before you were born. His big breakthrough role was Camelot. I'm thinking you're not a big Camelot person.
Not really. But I actually like the stuff a lot more than you do.
I can tell by the way you're dressed that you do. You're a walking stuff commercial. And why am I not surprised that that's one of your favorites? Because at this point, I just assume that if I diss the movie, you're going to like the movie.
That is so not true. But I did used to have a monster crush on Scott Bloom.
You had what?
Like, big crush on Scott Bloom.
In this movie, he's 11 years old.
I mean, I was like 10 the first time I saw it. So he's like
Really?
an older gentleman.
Well, does Scott know? He's probably available.
I mean, he might now.
Well, all right. Well, give me the details on Twitter after Scott sends you a message, And in the meantime, it looks like you have some actual stuff with you today.
I thought you might want to try it.
I'm not eating that, no. The stuff in the movie was made out of blended fish bones. I'm not eating blended fish bones. My God, there is stuff in that can.
Enough of the stuff. Never enough.
Oh, yes, it is. All right, I'll eat it if you... Oh, man. Oh, my God. I was going to say I'll eat it if you eat it, but you just ate it.
So yummy.
And you're a vegan.
It's vegan friendly and gluten free.
It is not. You're making that up.
Eat it.
What is it? What did you put in here? What did you guys put in here?
Never doubt this stuff. So good, right?
I want more. Give me this one. I want
Joe,
more.
Bob, and Darcy eating a little bit of the
Okay.
stuff.
Let's do mail.
Okay. Actually, I want to do 2 letters tonight.
Okay.
Because one is just some information. First one is from James Roberts of Riverside, California. He wants you to know that Blue Oyster Cult's Godzilla was written in Dallas.
Okay, that makes sense. What year is Godzilla? All the classic rock bands used to start their tours in Dallas, usually in this very studio that we work in here, because they would do the music video first and then do a Dallas show and then hit the road for their big tour.
I had no idea.
That's because it was before the era of Weezer. Okay.
Okay. And this one is actually Stump Joe Bob, so I can't let you look at it.
Are we doing that again?
We are indeed.
All right.
Okay, so Jonathan O'Donnell of Fort Greely, Alaska sends the following question. What 2 horror movies does Tom Hanks watch in The Burbs?
The Burbs. How could I know that?
Okay, so you missed that one. And I guess Jonathan knew you missed that one. So he asked an easier alternate question. Tom Hanks plays Fred Rogers in a current movie. In what movie did he watch an episode of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood?
Forrest Gump.
Nope.
Big.
Nope.
Tom Hanks watched Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Philadelphia. Sully. I don't know. Castaway. Sleepless in Seattle. Catch Me If You Can. League of Their Own.
How could he watch TV in Castaway?
I don't know. I just had a hunch. I'm just Tom Hanks movies.
Okay, so that was like 8 wrong answers. The answer is The Burbs.
Okay, occasionally somebody stumps me. So,
Like, always.
not always.
Always.
Did I ever tell you the one about the Pope on the airplane?
Are you changing the subject?
Yes, I'm changing the subject. This shy dude is preparing to board a plane, and he hears that the Pope is on the same flight. So he thinks, this is exciting. I've always been a big fan of the Pope. Maybe I'll be able to see him in person. And so the dude is very surprised when the Pope sits down in the seat right next to him on the plane. But he's too shy to speak. So shortly after takeoff, the Pope starts doing a crossword puzzle. And the dude thinks, this is great. I'm really good at crosswords. Maybe the Pope will get stuck and he'll ask me for assistance. Well, sure enough, right away, the Pope turns to the dude and he says, excuse me, but do you know a 4-letter word referring to a woman that ends in U-N-T? Well, one word immediately leaps to mind, but the dude thinks, I can't tell the Pope that word. There must be another word. So he thinks, and then it hits him. So he turns to the Pope and he says, I think you're looking for the word ant. The Pope says, of course. Do you have an eraser?
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, ghosts and goblins, witches and wizards, vampires and werewolves, thank you so much for for hanging out with me tonight. Thank you for the subscription from Tristan Betty. I believe I'm saying that correctly. And hopefully, like I said, with all the tragic news from the hockey world, the NHL world, on Johnny Gaudreau, however you want to pronounce it. I personally knew him as Johnny Hockey. Hopefully, with all the tragic news, we had a chance to laugh tonight. We had a chance to spend some time together. And that to me is the most valuable thing, is getting to hang out and watch some horror stuff with Joe, Bob, and Darcy. Thank you, Shutter Network. Thank you, Joe, Bob, Briggs. Thank you, Darcy, the mail girl, as some of you may know her. And thank you, most importantly, for hanging out with me tonight. Rest in peace, Johnny Gaudreau. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you had fun. I hope it was a laugh, like I said, from... Thank you once again. Ladies and gentlemen, ghosts and goblins, witches and wizards, vampires and werewolves. Until next time, peace, God.